This is the Child Rights Center of Samtskhe Javakheti State University. The subject for today is child rights-based education. For a long time, states have focused on access to education. They were making sure, most of them at least, that children get access to a school. But with the Convention on the Rights of the Child, this concept was not enough anymore. Article 29 specifically of the Convention on the Rights of the Child mentioned that education should aim to develop the personality of the child. Many states were focusing before the Convention on education being concentrated on the economic impact that it would produce. And this concept is a violation of the principle of the best interest of the child. The Convention on the Rights of the Child made a revolution in this context by stating that education should aim at the development, or the main objective of education should be the development of the personality of the child. Access is always important, is crucial. There should be access for every child to a school. And nowadays, and especially with what we have witnessed under the COVID-19 pandemic, we say access to education through digital platforms as well. But having mentioned the COVID-19 pandemic, we should not forget the digital divide which is happening, and the many children, especially in underserved communities, which do not have access to online education. But coming back to access in terms of school, this was the focus for years and years, especially that education was not always available for all children. Many countries in the 20th century were not providing and ensuring an equal right of access to education for every child. But with time, states understood that the access should be ensured, but the challenge became the quality of education. And with the Convention on the Rights of the Child, it is very clear that it's not enough to have access to a school, but education should be of quality, and the school should be a place which respects children's rights. A school where violence exists, a school where children cannot participate, a school where teachers abuse children, this is not a school that respects children and their rights. Therefore, the access is combined with the right to quality education. And quality education is not easy to achieve, because this means that all teachers all over the country should have the same qualifications, and all schools, even in the remote mountainous areas, should have the same specifications, the same qualifications, the same level of education. And access with quality is what the Convention on the Rights of the Child advocates for. Ministries of education globally have to understand very well that access is not enough anymore to say that a child is enjoying her or his right to education. Quality education, at the same time, requires that teachers are child rights-based educators. A teacher, for instance, who does not believe in the right of the child to participation cannot implement modern teaching and learning methods, because these methods are built on the principle that the teacher is not the only source of information, and the teacher should learn from the students at the same time while teaching them. So the core principle here is the belief of the teacher in the right to participation of every child. And this is how we can achieve quality education combined with two other elements: a curricula which respects children's rights, and this means that children have to be consulted about the curricula as well, and a school administration that understands very well what child rights are, and a school administration which advocates for children's rights. There are many countries in the last century, in the 70s for instance, which built their curricula and they engineered their educational system based on the economic impact. And that in itself was a violation of children's educational rights, because the focus was not the development of the personality of the child. Violence was allowed in some educational systems, justifying it by a good economic impact. Nowadays, we know very well that many countries banned completely all kinds of corporal punishment and all kinds of violence against children. And we continue calling all countries to ban all forms of corporal punishment against children. At the same time, let's look at it from a developmental point of view. Sustainable development cannot be achieved without democracy and without sound democratic practices in the society. And if democratic practices are not taught in the family and at school, citizens will never be able to practice them correctly and will never be able to resort to peaceful means when resolving conflicts. So the core principles which lead to sustainable development are very much in a strong child rights culture in any society. And this is the philosophy of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, when making also the right to participation one of the four general principles of the Convention. Since 1989, since the adoption of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the four general principles, the non-discrimination, the best interest of the child, the right to development, and the right to participation, have become crucial in achieving development. And the principle of the right to development, which went beyond the right to life and survival, is very relevant also to a child rights-based education, because this principle, stipulated in Article 6 of the Convention, means that it's not enough anymore to have a school. It's not enough anymore to have textbooks, but there should be a quality education. And this takes us to the right to development. So the child has to achieve all the abilities during the educational process. And the school should become a social institution, connecting very well to the parents, connecting to the real problems in the society, but also able to understand the societal factors that affect the well-being of children and dealing with these factors in the best way to achieve the best interests of the child. The third key element of a child rights-based education, in addition to access, equitable access, in addition to quality education, is inclusion. And this is a big challenge still facing many countries worldwide. Inclusion means that the society, and especially the educational system, respects all human rights, which means all children from different categories should be included in the educational system in equality with all other children. Children with disabilities, and when we mention children with disabilities, we think immediately of all the requirements that the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities stipulated, and on the Convention on the Rights of the Child as well. So it's not only the physical, the infrastructural elements, but also the mentality. How teachers, how parents, how school administration should accept and should uphold the rights of children with disabilities to be accepted in the schools, to be accepted in all the activities around education as well. Also, we have to think of children of minority groups, children who are discriminated for any reason in the society. So discrimination should stop, and children should be included in the educational system. There is no better place than education, than schools, to bring all children together and to establish a culture of child rights, a culture of non-discrimination, a culture of equality, a culture of equity, a culture of acceptance of others, a culture of tolerance. This is how societies progress. This is how societies become more peaceful. This is how societies achieve sustainable development. For that, we need to consult with children. We need to listen to children, what kind of education they want, whether the curricula is suitable for them. We need a teacher who is child rights based, a teacher who is child-centered, child-oriented. We need also a school administration that respects children's rights, and we need appropriate budgeting for children's educational rights.